Okay, great. So welcome everybody to the Freelance and Entrepreneurs panel tonight. We have a variety of panelists here from different industries within the communications industry who are going to talk to us a bit about their experiences, their journeys, and then, we'll ask them some questions about what that has been like and what advice they have for current students who are thinking about this as either, side hustle business or a full career. So excited to hear what you guys have to share. So I'll let the panelists introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you got there, and then we'll break into some more specific questions. So we'll start with our recent alum, Crosby. If you want to share, Crosby is a social media and branding strategist of her own company. She's also a content writer at Flagship Social. And she's currently, not currently, but she's based in Tampa, Florida. And I'll have her introduce herself first.
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Crosby. So basically, I am an independent contractor for a startup social media agency. That's kind of the primary thing that I do. I also freelance for, small businesses, individuals, and I started this in college while I was still at Elon. I kind of just, after a few internships, figured out that I kind of wanted to do my own thing, explore different avenues, and kind of be essentially my own boss, with clients and help them with their online presence, which I'm super passionate about and something I did a lot in school. I also have a social media presence and a blog, and I help other aspiring remote workers get a remote job and kind of navigate that whole thing since it is growing so rapidly. And I travel a lot. That's kind of why I work remotely. So yeah, that's about it.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Crosby. And next I'll have AJ Harris. AJ graduated in 2011 and is currently a freelance video editor, and he's based in Atlanta, Georgia. So take it away, AJ.
All right. Hey, guys. So yeah, I do a lot of freelancing. I also work full-time for a production company down here in Atlanta. We do a lot of corporate marketing videos. And so I started out at a college in New York, worked for a production company that did TV shows. And so did that for about 2 years, came down to Atlanta, worked in the freelance for a number of years, worked for the Weather Channel, some other production companies here and there, and then was hired full-time back in 2017 for the company I work for now. And so I also do a lot of freelancing on the side as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. Perfect. And next, I'll turn it over to Ashley Gimer, who is graduated from our iMedia program. And for undergrad, she graduated from the North Carolina A&T University. And she's also based in Atlanta. And she is the founder and creator of Divine iMedia and also an adjunct instructor at Clayton State University. So I'll have her introduce a little bit more about herself.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you all for being with us today. I'm really looking forward to this talk. So a little bit about me. It's kind of like, where do I start? So I'm actually coming up on my 1-year anniversary with Divine iMedia. This is my baby, and I am a full service content marketing agency. And so what that means for me is that I provide videography services, photography, graphic design, website development, as well as social media and consulting. And so I really do utilize my full education that I got from both A&T as well as Elon. And prior to launching my business, I've been able to work at various news organizations. I've worked in higher ed, I've worked at content marketing agencies, and I've really had the privilege to kind of be able to enhance my skill set at different places. So that's all kind of culminated into what I do now in the present. And then also I'm an adjunct instructor at Clayton State University, and I've been there for about 3 years. And this semester, I am teaching 2 sections of public speaking to about 40 freshmen, which is quite interesting, but I'm able to teach a variety of courses, and I just love what I do. Thanks for having me.
That's awesome. Excellent. And last, certainly not least, we have Eva Hill, who's a 2012 graduate, and she's a freelance animator and designer. And she's currently based in Washington, D.C. So go ahead, Eva.
Awesome. Hi, thanks everybody for coming. So yeah, freelance animator. I just recently graduated in 2020 with a master's of fine art from USC. And that program was specifically animation. So both 2D and 3D, hand-drawn and digital. So those are just that I have currently going into my freelance career. Some of my recent clients are and Nickelodeon and a company called Everyday Speech that makes videos for children with learning challenges. So I really just do a lot of work across the board. And yeah, I'm just really excited to be here with you all.
Awesome. Very cool to hear such the variety of things you guys do and the variety of different clients that you've had. Very cool. So awesome. Well, thank you all. Good to get a little bit of a taste of what you're all doing right now. And sort of some of you are full-time freelancers or have another job on the side. So I think it's a nice variety for our students to see as well. So going to start off with asking you probably kind of a loaded question here, but what would you say is a typical day looks like for you? How do you manage your time to handle, multiple projects that you might have going on? And anyone can jump in here.
All right, I'll start off. How about that? So I've been working so I used to go to an office every day, and then COVID hit and everything's been remote. So I have an office in my house. So I get up and I can go right to work. It's great because I'm at home, but it's also not great because I can be working weekends, nights, mornings, whenever. So really for me, it's about, work-life balance. And so I try to budget each day, each week, take a look at the projects that I have going on and make sure I have time to get everything done as best quality as I can, and also have time for myself. I'm just this week, I probably touched 12 to 15 different videos, all in different stages of post-production, as far as just getting started to finalizing them. And so what I have is I have a spreadsheet that has all the information of every video on there. And it has when the next cut is due, who the client is, contact information, all that kind of stuff. So that helps me stay organized and stay on schedule for everything I do.
Yeah, I can go next. So I'm a little bit different. I work from home partly. I'm based in Tampa, Florida, but I travel a lot, and that was kind of the reason why I wanted to work online in the first place. I'm really passionate about traveling. I have a travel blog and all of that. So freelancing is kind of my way of financially supporting myself while I frolic around the world. And so I'd say, yeah, every day, as cliche as it is, every day is different. I'd say when I'm traveling, I always try to make sure I'm in a stable environment, just so, I treat it like a work week. I never, when I'm traveling, I don't treat it like vacation. At the end of the day, we are all working at least like 9 to 5 when we're working self-employed. A lot of times it's more than that. Like AJ was saying, can be weekends, it can be nights, it can be early mornings. So yeah, when I'm on the road, I typically, I'm either in an Airbnb or I was in an RV for a while. So I'll wake up, make breakfast. I usually get up really early. I work best in the morning. And then each day is different. So when I was working with multiple clients, right now I'm only working with one because my hours are quite high and I'm an independent contractor for them. So, depending on the day, I will either be working on work for them for Flagship Social, or I will be working on my own personal kind of brand passion project that I'm slowly growing into my full-time income. It's basically remote work consulting for other people. And so what I like to do is on Sundays, I sit down and I have a project management website called Notion that I use to just organize my entire life. It has a calendar, it has like notes, it has templates for everything you can imagine to just manage everything that I have to do. And so that's typically what I use. And every Sunday I'll sit down and I just look at my whole week. And what I like to do is I implement a style of work called batch working. And that just really helps me kind of organize my life, because as a self-employed person, you can very easily get very scatterbrained if you don't take the time to, set those internal deadlines and do everything like that. So every Sunday I just sit down, I look at my week, and, maybe Monday will be a flagship day. So I'll sit down and I will focus 110% of my time on my freelancing for them. And I manage several accounts for them. I run their social media. So I could be creating content, I could be having client calls. That just kind of depends, but I always like to just have each day set. So maybe freelancing one day, and then the next day I'm creating content for my own personal brand or writing blog posts or networking or something like that. But yeah, I again, like AJ said, work-life balance is huge. If you don't prioritize it, it can, kind of go behind you and you don't think about it and you're working 24/7. So that's why I like traveling. It kind of forces me to have work-life balance because if I'm in a beautiful place, I don't want to be staring at my computer 24/7. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, every day is different, but I really just try to, each day and each week plan ahead and make sure that I'm on top of everything and scheduling it out.
Okay, I'll jump in here next. So yes, as a full-time entrepreneur, every day is going to look a little bit different. That's just kind of like the nature of the beast. So a typical day for me, I wake up, I shower. During that time, I pray, I do positive affirmations. I'm really big on self-talk and setting the intention for the day. So I always do that every morning. After I do that, I go into work mode and I return emails. I follow up with anything that may be lingering from the day before. I try to prioritize, and I am what you call old school. I write everything down. I have my handy dandy planner and it has check boxes for my to-do list. And that for me is so crucial. That's how I organize my thoughts. And I really do kind of prioritize and prefer to work that way. So once I follow up any lingering things with clientele, then I can move into my work for the day. So I may be doing various creative projects. I may be creating a video, I may be refining graphics, I may be designing a website. I may also have some different discovery calls or kickoff calls with new clients. So I'll try to work that in as well. And then from there, I'll take a break, maybe go run some errands. And then I come back and kind of do a second leg of work. And I'm a little bit different. I'm a little bit of a night owl. I prefer to work like really late. And especially when I get passionate about something, once I start on it, I don't like to stop. I find that when I do a lot of stopping, it messes up the flow. So when I get, focused on a project, I try to just execute. And of course I take a break if it's not working, but I'll stay up, on average, probably to 12 or 1 a.m., sometimes even later than that, working on projects, but my day also starts a little bit later. And that's kind of what my Monday, Wednesday, Friday looks like. And then on the days that I teach, which is on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the college that I teach at is actually about 45 minutes south of me. So I'm spending a good little bit in traffic, commuting from Brookhaven to Morrow. AJ, I know you can relate to that on the traffic, but they're so worth it. And then I go to school and I teach 2 courses back to back. So once I do that, I then make my commute back to Brookhaven. So that's pretty much my days on the days that I teach. And before I teach, I try to reserve that time for any kind of last minute things I need to pay attention to for my students, last minute prepping, et cetera. And then once I return home, it's back to Divine Eye Media.
Awesome. And I be having internet issues. So if for any second, like I'm cutting out or something, just please let me know and I can try to adjust that. So yeah, like all the other speakers here, every day looks really different for me. Like some days I might be like animating a dancing pickle, and then the next day I'm like making graphics for Twitch. So it's like, who knows what the future holds. So, and like AJ, I also balance like a lot of different like visual projects. So right now I have 4 clients that I'm working with and doing various types of animation tasks for them that have different deadlines, some of which it's like, can we get this in 10 minutes? Some of this is, can we have this by Tuesday? So for me, I like that because it's kind of helped my expectations be set of, okay, like I know this is due on Tuesday, this thing's due in 5 minutes. It makes it very clear to sort of prioritize and structure my workflow and days and kind of plan weeks ahead of time, and then adjusting for those last minute deadlines. And in terms of my work situation, I go to this little, it's hard to describe. It's almost like a cafeteria. It's like a more elevated coffee shop where they have giant booths and tons of outlets. So I'll just set up like all my monitors there, and that sort of, okay, I'm going to turn off my camera and see if that helps here. Okay. So yeah, sometimes I'll go work from there or I'll work from home, and my husband, he is able to go into the office safely now. So he does that. And then I kind of use the home space when he's not doing that. So yeah, like every day is different. And I also do my best work in the morning. So with a good cup of
Just got caught off at the end, but I think you said coffee, I'm assuming, or tea, depending on what you drink. But awesome. Great. Well, thank you. And Eva, I can hear you okay. It is glitching a little bit. So if you want to see how it goes better with the camera off, but I still was hearing what you're saying, just pausing a little bit. But thank you all for sharing. And I think it's nice to see the different styles, right? If you're a morning or a night person and where you work best. And I think realizing that you got to find and learn a little bit what works best for you. So, and let me clarify too, I forgot to mention when we started as well, for students, I'm going to ask some questions of our panelists for the first part here, and then we're going to open it up to you all. So throughout this, you can feel free to either direct message me a question that you have, or just put it in the general chat, and we can definitely gather those to ask our panelists at the end, whether it's a question for the whole group or for a specific panelist. Feel free to do that. So I just want to make sure I let everyone know that. But the next question for you all, and again, I feel like Crosby and AJ kind of touched on this too, and you talked about, being able to travel and being able to work from home, and like you said, wake up and be where you're going to be for the day. So in addition, what would you say are those benefits that you have when you work for yourself? What do you love most about the work that you get to do?
For me, it's being in control. I set my own schedule. A lot of times I'm in direct contact with the clients. So I can kind of really dictate what direction things are going in. Another big thing is efficiency. I mean, I've worked for big companies. I've worked for small companies too. When you're with a big company, I mean, everything is so complex. I mean, I've worked on like 30-second, minute-long videos with like the Weather Channel, and it takes 2 months to do them because there's so many different levels to go through to get approval. So when it's just me, I have the script, I have everything I need, I put it together, I send it to the client, and it's direct communication with them, as opposed to dealing with, within a bigger company. So for me, those are the biggest benefits.
For me, I would say what I love the most about being able to work from home and work for myself is definitely the freedom of my time, and also the freedom to choose what assignments and projects I take on. By and large, I'm able to service the bulk of people who come to me, but I'm also now at a point where if I feel like a project is not a good fit for me at the time, I can say no to it. And, that's so liberating coming from corporate America, where you're just pretty much told what to do. And oftentimes you're not treated as a real decision maker despite having to deliver the product. And so just the freedom of my time and the ability to work on assignments. And then I just really enjoy the clientele that has been attracted to me. I'm really big on kind of like attracting things versus chasing people down to work with me. I think the communication flows a lot better. I want them to come from me based on what they see on my site, my social media, and most of my business is referrals. But the clientele that's been drawn to me, they are just so passionate about the work that they're doing. I work with a lot of small businesses as well as other entrepreneurs, and the energy is just so different when people go into it with the spirit of, I get to do this versus I have to do this. And that's been the main difference for me, and it's just really energizing.
Yeah, like Ashley was saying, I love being able to take on like different types of projects. And I mean, if you work in animation or design, if you're working in animation, you're either like a freelancer or more likely than not at a specific studio. So at that studio, you're really kind of like often pigeonholed into having to do very specific types of things, whether that's like content and subject matter, or even just the visual style itself. So those types of jobs are often, like, while very exciting, also very limiting. So as a freelancer, I'm able to do like all kinds of different visual styles, all kinds of subject matters, and even just like the nature of the work I do every day often differs from whether it's like comedy and entertainment to something that's more, like an inside job for a company that needs something more PR related. So yeah, I really love that. So that's one of the biggest benefits for me. And in addition to Crosby, I love to travel too. So just being able to pack everything up and go somewhere, work for a few days, and get a break, especially during the pandemic. Like, a lot of working from home is, it's nice, but it can get kind of draining. So being able to have a change of pace and a change of scenery is excellent as well.
I mean, I really don't have much to add. I was totally agree with everything that everyone said. I think the biggest thing for me is just the freedom of my time and the freedom to kind of work wherever I want, essentially. If I could add on one thing, I think for me, I love freelancing because I find it quite motivating, as opposed to maybe a corporate job where you only get promoted or you get a higher salary maybe once every year or once every 2 years, depending on the corporate structure. As a freelancer, you set your own rates, and the more clients you have and the better referrals you have, the more testimonials you have, you can raise those rates and you can vouch for yourself. And if you're able to do that successfully, you can earn more money. And like AJ was saying with the efficiency thing, once you get those systems in place, as you are freelancing for longer and longer, you're able to take on more. Maybe you hire someone else to help you with, more admin things. And then, you can grow even further to something, like Ashley is doing with Divine Eye Media, having your own business. So I just find it very motivating that you can really grow very quickly depending on how hard you work. So I just love that aspect of it.
Awesome. I feel like you all brought up really great things, and there was an overarching theme there of the freedom and the control that you have that I feel like is definitely, what attracts a lot of people to doing, running their own business or to being a freelancer. So really great to hear all of that. We're gonna flip it, of course, and now talk about maybe the other side, right? So, and some of you have, been doing this for a while too. So what are some obstacles and challenges that you face maybe when you first started out? And then, what are your biggest challenges now that you still sometimes struggle with?
Okay, I guess I'll start again. Yeah, so for me, it was first starting out, it was really networking. Coming out of Elon, I didn't really have a very wide network or contacts that I could get in touch with. I played football at Elon, and so instead of doing internships or studying abroad or something, we had to be at school working out or in season or something. So coming out of college was tough because I didn't have that network. And branching out was, once I kind of got my foot in the door with some people, then it was basically word of mouth. And if you do a good job, if you're a quality worker, and if you pay attention to details, that word of mouth spreads pretty fast. And so luckily for me, after a few years of being in the real world, I was able to have enough support and enough clients to really support myself. And now the biggest problem is turning down projects. I always want to say yes to everything, but also everyone has 24 hours in a day, and you really have to be able to, like everyone's been saying, pace yourself and have that work-life balance, because when you get burnt out, you can't really work that well. And clients demand quality, and they demand perfection. And if you can't deliver that, then you're not really any good.
Yeah, I can go first. This is very fresh on my mind considering I just graduated. But I'd say just starting out, my biggest challenge was just gaining that confidence in myself. As a freelancer, you are pretty much, at least starting out, you're the only one that can truly vouch for yourself before you have past clients to vouch for you to other people. So yeah, I'd say just starting out, I started out as a rising senior in college. So it was the summer before senior year. I put together my, my resume, my portfolio, and a list of potential clients that I was going to pitch to. And I just really had to put my, I guess, non-confidence aside. I'm blanking. I can't remember the word right now. I had to really, improve my own view of myself, and just, improve that positive self-talk, and that, yes, I am qualified. I can provide quality work. I've done it, in Live Oak. I've done it in internships. I know that I can provide, really high quality work for these clients. So it was kind of overcoming that initial doubt, and, being able to just be confident enough to pitch myself. I'd say today, my biggest challenge, and it's still a learning process. I've, again, only been freelancing for about a little over 2 years now. It's taxes. Taxes are a pain in the butt. And just if you didn't know, you have to file your own taxes if you're self-employed, if you're a freelancer, or if you're an entrepreneur. And yeah, it's a whole thing. And I'm really trying to educate myself and, talk to different CPAs and people that know what they're doing, and, learning. I have made some mistakes. I've gotten some letters in the mail from the IRS being like, you didn't do this right. And I was like, oh no. So definitely taxes is something that, you kind of have to prepare yourself for. And ask around, ask for advice from your parents or people who know what they're talking about. Still very much, I'm in a work in progress when it comes to taxes. So.
Yeah, ugh, taxes. Already dreading that, but for this next year. So in animation, like when I was first starting out, one of the big challenges was having a decent portfolio to show people because, unfortunately I can't just say, oh, I'm an animator and someone will hire me. They want to see like, what have you done? What is the quality of your work? What kind of styles can you work in? Are you reliable? So kind of putting together a good visual representation of your work is just so important. So when you're just starting out, you don't necessarily you haven't necessarily had clients. So you kind of have to do that on your own and, follow different styles and trends and see what studios are doing and see what people are looking for. And that kind of goes into the next point, which is, things that are really valuable today are keeping up with that same portfolio, following the trends and styles, seeing what other artists are doing. And especially in a time of COVID, like I've really relied a lot on Instagram to, post my work, show people that I'm creating, show people what I'm doing for both clients and personally, so that they can say, oh, look, like, Eva's constantly churning stuff out. She's really passionate and, would be great to work with. And in addition to that, also just keeping in touch with other animators in the community. I've attended a bunch of different screenings and artist talks. So for me, that's just been a really great resource to help stay connected and continue learning even out of school.
Excellent. So I definitely relate with what everyone else said as far as, networking being a big thing, as well as time management and even kind of overcoming the imposter syndrome. And so when I launched my business, this was in the fall of 2020, so full-blown pandemic. And so I got this crazy idea that, hey, I'm going to quit my job and work for myself. And so by and large, the people around me, my family and friends, they responded positively and, wished me well. And, my business is pretty much all referrals. So many people have supported me and I'm so grateful for them. But there were people in my family and friends who kind of just raised their eyebrows and were like, are you sure? Do you think that's the best thing for you to be doing in the midst of a pandemic? And, everybody's out here trying to, fight for their job and you're going to give up your job to do something else. And so I had to deal with kind of doubt from other people and I wasn't really prepared for that. But what is, it's really motivated me to go even harder with it. But I didn't realize that would be something that I would have to deal with is, they plant a seed of doubt. And so, that's why I'm really big on affirming myself every day that yes, I am qualified, I can do this, I have the portfolio, I have the education, I have the credentials, and not only do I do it professionally, but I can also teach it. I really, really love what I do. And so I would kind of say kind of overcoming that and just proving myself is one thing, but now kind of further into my business, it's definitely time management. Creative burnout is real. You can't go all the time. And I'm still trying to find that balance between taking me time and working on my clients. And I saw this meme that was so relatable saying, I quit my 9 to 5 because I didn't like going there. And now I work 24/7. And I relate to that. I work whenever I feel inspired, but I like that better than, still having to go somewhere and only be there from 9 to 5. So you win some, you lose some.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes, working maybe longer for something that you're passionate about, sounds like for most of you is worth it in the end, but definitely can understand that about the creative burnout piece for sure. And I'm glad you brought up too. I think that's definitely something that our students might be thinking about with that doubt from others. And, freelance is also can be pretty generational. I mean, we have a lot more younger, up and coming people who are freelancers or running their own business. So I think, parents, other family members may have that doubt. And so, that's definitely hard and thinking about how you can advocate for yourself. So I appreciate you bringing that up for our students. We've gotten some questions from some students, which is great. And I'm going to actually pop over to the question that Ross put in the chat, because I know Crosby already mentioned that a little bit with rates. So let's jump back and talk about that. So Ross said, when starting out, how do you establish rates and how do you justify those rates?
Well, I'm sure all of us have different experiences with this. You know, I know some people had worked jobs before and then became a freelancer. I started while I was still in college. I was actually at a corporate internship at an agency that I, for years, thought that I was going to go to after graduation. And they even offered me a job and I turned it down and I was like, what am I doing? But basically, I kind of just shot in the dark. I definitely lowballed it because I was still in school. I didn't have, you know, a quote unquote real job beforehand. However, I was a part of Live Oak Communications, which is the student run agency at Elon. I'm sure most of you guys know. I worked there like all of college, and then I was director my senior year. And so luckily, you know, Elon has such incredible extracurriculars that I already had a lot of things to put in my portfolio before I even graduated. And that was extremely helpful to start freelancing and have something to show. So I set my rates, you know, I really just did a lot of research and just kind of saw what other people were charging, what people recommended charging, depending on your experience. And since I was still a full-time student, I only took on one client in the very beginning just to kind of get my feet wet. And it was a family friend. So I did quite a low rate. And if we're being transparent here, I charged like $20 an hour or $22 an hour, I think. And it was just, you know, I knew it was low, but, you know, at the same time, you can even charge nothing just to get the experience, because that's going to help you further down the line, you know, have that credibility and that portfolio to show. So that was my starting rate. And, you know, as I became more credible and took on more clients, those rates increased more and more. And now I don't even charge hourly anymore unless it's like an add-on, because I find hourly is just not efficient. If you are efficient, you're going to get paid less for working less, even though you're producing quality work. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of set your rates. And yeah, just depending on how much experience you have, who you're pitching to. So, you know, if you're working with big companies with big budgets, obviously your budget or your rates can be higher. If you're working with small businesses or individuals like I am, you know, they may be quite a bit lower. It just totally depends. And yeah, that was my experience. And I've obviously raised my rates significantly since then. And yeah, in terms of just like being confident in your rates, you just gotta, people are paying you to help them with their business. And you know, if you kind of think about it in like, also you're paying your taxes, they're saving a lot of money and they're not, you know, paying taxes for you. So that's another thing, you know, they gotta take that into consideration. So yeah, that's really what it is definitely is a big thing to overcome mentally, especially if you're just in college like me. Yeah, but that's kind of how I started out, just did a lot of research and went with that.
Yeah. So I just asked around because I was I guess I've been freelancing. I started freelancing while I was working at New York Magazine, which was I think 2016 or so. So I was working a full-time job and then additionally like trying to break into the freelance career, or break into my freelance career rather. So when I started out, I was also really doing my graduate program. So I would just ask around. So I was fortunate enough to have a community of people around me where I could say, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah company wants to know what my day rate is. Like, how do I balance that? How do I, you know, come up with a number for that? So that's kind of how I started out. And then as I've, you know, become a little bit more established, like I have a base day rate, and then it's often based on the type of client, you know, like Crosby was saying, is it like a family friend or a smaller client, you know, who may not have the budget for a higher rate? Or is it like someone like Nickelodeon or a company that definitely would have the means to, you know, pay a more sizable sum? And then the second part of Ross's question, which I find like really important and I've had to learn how to do this, is how do you justify the rate to the client? Because sometimes, especially with like what I do in animation, people will say, oh, I would like 5 minutes of animation. I want it to look like Aladdin and I'm going to give you $500. It's like, okay, like absolutely not. There's literally no way that is possible or plausible. So you have to kind of set people's expectations. And I always do that by calculating it out in specific numbers. Like, for example, like my day rate is XYZ. You know, I think it will take me 5 days to do this project. Therefore, the project budget is blank. So I find that that's really helpful, at least for me, in communicating things to the client. So for them, they're not just hearing an abstract number. They're saying, oh, okay, like it's going to take this many days and this is the amount per day or hour or, you know, flat project rate, however you want to finagle it. So that's one thing that I've learned and is really crucial for me to make sure that I'm doing work that is like, I'm getting paid for the time that I'm putting into the work and I'm not, undercutting myself.
Yeah, for me, starting out, my first job was with a production company up in New York. And so I guess I was a contract worker. I got paid hourly, but it was for like, one TV season. So they told me, hey, we're gonna pay you $25 an hour to be an assistant editor. Keep track of your hours when you come in, when you leave, and then send us, your hours for the week. So that was a good kind of starting point for me, at least a reference point of where rates are for assistant editors, editors. And then coming down to Atlanta, as I started editing instead of assistant editing, I gradually rose that. And I've been lucky to have some pretty good mentors kind of down here guide me and say, on a certain project, hey, you can raise your rate a little bit. We're dealing with a certain client. They have the budget for it. Go ahead and do that. I will say for freelancing, everything is negotiating. So if a client comes to you and says, hey, this is our budget for this, can you do it? So yeah, I can do it, but it might cost you X, or I could do it, but that's a little bit low. How about this? And it's also good to be able to, I guess, quantify everything. So if a client is asking for if you agree on a set price or agree on an hourly rate, they give you the scope of the project, and later down the line, if they are starting to ask you to do things that weren't part of the original plan, then you have to go back to the negotiating table and you either charge hourly or daily or whatever it is. But you can't be afraid to do that, because clients will, they're on a budget too, and they will try to, keep things as low as they can. And so that's kind of on you, the freelancer, to be able to push back and say, hey, no, it's going to cost you X to finish this up. So don't be afraid of that.
Great advice there. Great advice. So pricing and rates have been kind of a little bit challenging for me, because I feel like we learned so much in school, but rates and pricing as a freelancer was not one of the things that was covered in the course material. So, pretty much I've started out with Google and kind of just Googling rates based on whatever I'm looking for, and then kind of comparing that to, the average in Atlanta, which is where I'm at. So I think, looking up rates, if you have to start on Google, you have no idea, make sure that you can at least search based on your location. I think that can kind of help with that. And then I've also, of course, asked my network, different people who have the same kind of credentials and education as me, what do they think the pricing should be at? And it really is kind of just like a guessing game. And just like AJ said, you get what you negotiate for. So don't be afraid to, go for that top dollar if you feel like you have the portfolio to support it. But I would also say that my pricing is pretty much project-based, and I have come up with kind of like my dedicated packages. I really sell myself as a multimedia producer. So when clientele come to me, I try to avoid just doing one thing for them. I like to package my services because I feel like that gives them more bang for their buck, and they don't have to work with all these separate vendors. And then I'm also not waiting on someone to send me pictures and someone to send me this, when I can just, provide that for my clientele. So I feel like coming up with my packages has been key. And I think my clients love it, that they can come and just say, oh, I get X, Y, and Z for this amount. And then I'm also able to do pay increments from them if they need that. So I think that's been very helpful. And then I'll also say that I have had to kind of learn the hard way that you have to have different pricing for small business entrepreneurs, individuals versus big business. I've definitely, sent off a proposal to a big company before, and they came back and they're basically like, hey, this was like not comparable to the other offers that we got. So I had to learn that the hard way, but it was hard because I've never had anyone to show me and guide me. And so as a moment of transparency, I honestly could use more help with that on the pricing, but I have been steadily raising my rates. And I know for 2022, based on my time schedule, the rates are going to have to go up as well. So I definitely say, don't fall into the trap of the hourly work. Definitely at least do project-based if possible, unless hourly is like an add-on.
These are great tips. And I think that, like you all said, that was something that you struggled with a bit at the beginning. So I think this is great for students to hear, and especially about doing their research, you know, and not underselling themselves. And I'm going to circle back at some point too, to what you mentioned, Ashley, about maybe things that you didn't learn in your programs that you had to teach yourself. So we'll circle back to things that you've had to maybe self-teach yourself. But I want to hit on a couple other student questions. I'm going to kind of combine two that we got. The first one, and part of it, I feel like you all already addressed, they said a big problem many creatives have is being underpaid / underappreciated. How do you go about structuring / landing gigs? And we're going to combine that with another student question who asked, how much does getting freelance work rely on networking? So I would imagine, I know some of you already shared that, right? Some of your first gigs were family friends. So if you want to talk a bit about how do you structure land gigs, and then how much does networking tie into that?
I guess I'll go. So that first part of the question, kind of how I structure my rates, you know, like Ashley was just saying, I kind of moved from hourly to project-based when my systems were up and running, and I found that I was working less time, even though the quality of my work was better. And so I ended up getting paid less. And you can raise your hourly rates all day long, but it's going to catch up eventually. And you just want to kind of have that flat either project rate or monthly retainer that you have with a client. You know, that way, if you are more efficient, you're not getting punished financially for that. So yeah, it just depends what you're doing. You know, for me, you know, having packages is definitely really great. Like Ashley mentioned, you know, it's very easy for someone to go on your website or reach out to you, and you kind of respond with a very concrete list of things that you can provide for a certain price. And again, you know, negotiation is always on the table. So if someone wants, you know, a replacement, if someone doesn't need one service, but they need something else added on, you know, you can adjust those prices accordingly. But yeah, I'd say, you know, once you become, you know, more familiar with your services and what people are willing to pay for them, yeah, you know, coming up with some set prices and packages will be definitely in your favor. And then the second part of that question about networking, right? How important networking is. So important, like the most important thing for sure. You know, there's a lot of websites out there like Upwork and Fiverr and Contra and LinkedIn that have freelancing. You know, you can apply for gigs as a freelancer. You can put your profile there like as a freelancer and show your services and your rates. I tried this at the beginning, absolute crickets, heard nothing, got zero, you know, emails back, or, you know, anyone kind of reaching out to me. Literally every single one of my clients came from my immediate network in the very beginning, and now it's through word of mouth. So in the beginning, you know, what I did at Elon that was super helpful, I took advantage of every single networking event possible. And I think the communication school does a great job, at least when I was there, of, you know, putting on networking events with alumni or people in the industry that they can get to come to the school. You know, the gig that I have now at Flagship Social, actually a former Elon alum reached out to me and asked me to come full time. And since I was freelancing, I negotiated an independent contracting position. And now they are my, you know, highest paying client, and yeah, they love that I travel and they're super supportive. And it was an Elon alum that brought me on, and it was just through a networking event that I met her, and I kept in touch with her for like 3 years. So yeah, I'd say networking is huge. There's ways to do it in person, but also, you know, don't underestimate social media groups like LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups. You can find a lot of very niche social media groups that you can join. And a lot of the times people will post kind of insider opportunities that they're not putting on job sites. They're posting it in these groups. I've actually gotten a couple gigs through that. So yeah, networking with literally everyone, whether it's for family or friends, or, you know, Ross Wade actually helped me get one of my clients when I was at Elon. So, you know, tell everyone, tell your professors, tell your friends, post on social media, don't be ashamed. And I think you'll be surprised by who is willing to support you.
Okay, I'll jump in here. So how to land gigs. As stated before, most of my clientele is based on referrals, so family and friends, and also word of mouth. And I have people, sometimes they reach out to me various ways, but I prefer for people to go to my website and submit the contact form and kind of go from there, because I feel like that's the best place for them to start, to really see my portfolio and what I provide, etc. And so from there, you know, I schedule a discovery call, and then I go through the process of submitting a nice 2 to 3 page proposal where I really outline the scope of work, review what we talked about, any deadlines, et cetera. I like to lay all that out, as well as I give my credentials, and then I go into the actual quote and kind of what exactly that covers line by line. And I send that off, and most of the time they say yes. And so from there, it kind of, it goes through from there. But I really like to speak to people first and then form that bond and that connection and just reiterate that properly in the proposal to them. So that's where most of my clientele comes from. I have been able to gain a few clients just based off random Google searches. People kind of just search for keywords, and sometimes they'll come across my company page. And so I have been able to land people blindly. But also going back to what Crosby said about the key groups on either Facebook or LinkedIn, et cetera. I've also gotten gigs from there. One of my favorite groups is called Marketing Communications Women of Atlanta. And so there's a lot of insider tips and tricks and job openings there. And matter of fact, I have a gig coming up on Saturday at Perimeter Mall. And this lady reached out to me. She saw my post months ago on there for, another opening, and she's just kept on to my contact, and now we're working together. Another key group for me has been Women Who Drone. I'm a certified drone pilot. And so I like to try to find niche groups that are all about that. And so through that group, I was actually able to take on a graphic design client. She needed a logo for her new drone business. And so that was so perfect that I was able to provide that and really understand where she's coming from. So definitely pay attention to the niche groups. I think that there's value in there.
Yeah, and I'll say, when you graduate, when you get out in the real world, everyone is a connection. No matter who you meet, you have to present it as, hey, could this person help me in the future? You never know. And the biggest thing you can do right now is do internships while you're in school, or summer, over the winter term, whenever. Get in the professional world, see how things are going, and meet people, and stay connected to the people who you get along with during those internships. And then, yeah, in the real world, like everyone else is saying, social media is awesome. When I first came down to Atlanta, I didn't know anyone. I didn't have any contacts. Luckily, Atlanta had, or Elon had an Atlanta alumni group, a Facebook group. So I went on there and said, hey, I'm new to the city. I'm an editor. Anyone looking for work? And someone replied back like, hey, I know someone who has a production company that is always looking for editors. And to this day, I still freelance for that company. And that was, 8 years ago. And so the other thing I also did was old school, just go down the list of companies that are in Atlanta and send them emails, whether they're looking for a person to hire or not. It doesn't hurt just to get your name out there. And over 100, 200 emails that I would send, maybe I would hear back from one or two, but it doesn't matter, because all you need is that one person to set you up with a gig that could set your whole career in motion. So don't be afraid to kind of do the cold call stuff, the emails and everything. Don't be afraid to reach out, especially people from Elon. Like, I'm always open to talking to anyone about their career and professional development. So it's big things for me for networking.
Cool. Well, just in the essence of time, I'll kind of combine my answers to both of these questions and echo everyone else's opinion and the fact that networking is just absolutely essential. And I do a lot of networking, like I said, on Instagram, which isn't necessarily relevant for everyone's profession, but I've gotten work through there and people have found me through there. And then in addition to that, just like all the word of mouth of, you make one project with somebody, you meet the deadlines, you do a really great job and just really shine. And then they're like, oh, like, I'm definitely going to work with Eva again, or I'm going to recommend her for this job. And that happened to me just this past week. I've been working with somebody and they recommended me for another job, and I'm about to sign the contract for that. So yeah, it's just so important to keep up good relationships. And one thing I've talked to animation recruiters about is, how often do you check in with them? Because you don't really want to be a pest and be like, hey, do you have a job for me? Do you have a job for me? So what they told me, and I can just echo this, is you just want to update them when you have new work. Don't email them asking for something. Email them saying, oh, hey, like I saw this new movie that you worked on came out. I got to see it. It was really great. Here's some new stuff I've been working on. I'd love your feedback. Hope you have a great day. So emails and contacts and reach outs like that are definitely much more accessible to recruiters and people that you might be interested in networking with, rather than just emailing and demanding a job, which they probably don't have anyway. So yeah, I think it's just absolutely crucial. And I have gotten so much work from it. And it's also just great because you meet friends and you make, lifelong connections. Like a couple other people here said, you're still working with those people and you might work with them again. So that's all.
Wonderful. Awesome. We have gotten tons of really good questions from students too. So for the sake of time, I'll ask one more that I think is probably on a lot of students' mind. But if for students, if you didn't have a question that was answered, I don't want to speak on behalf of all these panelists, but I feel like they would probably be willing to and happy to talk with you. So panelists, if you want to either put links to LinkedIn or anything in, or emails, whatever you feel like is the best way for people to reach out to you. If anyone does want to reach out, we would appreciate that. We'll end with one more question here too, and then wrap up quickly. If everyone's okay, possibly staying on a couple extra minutes. But this was, I thought, a good question that, again, I think a lot of students feel. I love the idea of freelance, but I'm scared of not having a stable income right out of college. How do you work on being financially stable with just freelancing? And do you recommend doing it as a side hustle right out of college?
I'll jump in here first. Don't get discouraged if work doesn't come right away. When I moved down to Atlanta, I didn't have any work for like 4 or 5 months. Not a single penny of income was coming in. And there were times where I thought, is this the right thing? Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right career? Am I in the right city? But then slowly but surely things started to pick up. My name got out there, work started coming in. So that's one of the biggest things. If you're going to freelance, it's not going to be all sunshine and roses all the time. There's going to be some tough moments where it's going to make you question everything. But if you don't get discouraged, if you stay true to what you want to do, if your why you're doing this, why you chose this career is strong enough, then you're gonna get through anything. And so yeah, that's kind of my big advice on that one.
Awesome. Any other last advice from panelists?
Yes, I'll jump in here. I would definitely say that I grew up with entrepreneurs for parents. Growing up, both my parents were real estate agents. And so I was kind of exposed to the world of entrepreneurship. They had their own office, et cetera, at a very early age. And that was my normal. Now, because of that, I also got to see kind of the up and down of entrepreneurship. And to be honest, that terrified me as a kid because, I could see when things are good, they're good. When things are bad, they're bad. And so because of that, that really put in, ingrained in my head that I need to have a job straight out of college and I need to be employed all the time. And I've always had a job, right? But then I got to the point where I wasn't happy and I needed to explore and find my happiness again and work on projects that were meaningful. To be a successful entrepreneur, you have got to have faith. And you have got to believe in yourself and you've got to put in the hard work. And so for me, I was able to finally gain that confidence after proving myself in corporate America and really gaining that portfolio. And so if you're kind of questioning already, I would say do it as a side hustle for now. Get your corporate gig, make sure that you're not worried about how you're going to support yourself, but after 5 o'clock, after you're done with that, go into your business and put time into it and be consistent with it and build up that portfolio and prove yourself. Once you get up maybe a couple of years in the game, you may be ready to transfer over to that full-time entrepreneurship, but don't be afraid to take it in stages. And that's honestly what I did with my company. I'm 1 year full-time, but I had launched it maybe about unofficially a year prior to that. And I just started slowly but surely doing projects and building up the confidence. But yes, the portfolio, that's how you prove yourself and that's how you can really take that leap of faith.
Yeah, I could not agree more with what you just said, Ashley. I think it just totally depends on your specific situation. I started freelancing when I was still working an internship in the corporate world. So it's definitely possible to do it as a side hustle. And again, when I was a full-time student, I also was freelancing. So, it's never too early to start, whether it's, pitching to your first client or just networking. You can start, taking those first few steps now, even if you're still in school, and then, kind of assess what is most realistic for you. I am definitely lucky enough that, when I graduated, it was during the heart of COVID. So I went and lived with my parents for a bit, and that really helped me save money and gave me time to work on my business. Again, that's not everyone's circumstance. So if you do need to get a full-time job to support yourself and do that as a side hustle, that is what a ton of people do. And if you don't have the, experience yet, or you don't feel like you're qualified yet, that is a great option to get yourself in the professional world, get your feet wet and make those connections. So yeah, that's what I would recommend for sure.
Yeah, and I don't have all that much else to add here, other than I think it's all just about accumulating experiences and taking risks. And again, not everybody means to just, jump out and dive in and do it. I sure didn't. I started working at the Huffington Post like immediately after graduating from Elon in 2012. So like from there, I had a full-time job for like 5 years and then kind of decided to go to get my master's and become a freelancer. So for me, it was definitely a process. It wasn't anything that I took lightly, but it was something I, sort of built up to, and, every day it's constantly growing. And one last thing I'll say, if anybody has any interest or desire of being an artist, and this is advice that's been told to me from a lot of people working in visual media, is you just have to kind of stay true to yourself. It's always good to look at trends and adapt and be able to execute things, but also just knowing like where your heart is and where you're really passionate and where you feel like you do your best work. So kind of, being able to adapt and, obviously take on jobs that might not be exactly what you want to do for the rest of your life, but you're taking those to, make money and then supplement yourself to make a film on the side or, make a comic strip or whatever. So yeah, that's all I'll say about that.
Wonderful. Thanks everyone. And for sticking past a little bit past 7 here. I appreciate it. I've also screenshotted so we can send out to students who are on the call. I know some had to pop out a little bit early. Thank you all so much for putting in your contact info and best ways to reach you, websites, LinkedIn, whatever it is. So we appreciate that. And can't thank you all enough for the advice. I feel like I could talk to you all night because you've had such really good things to share. So thank you for taking the time. I also I know Ross had to head out, but he mentioned about a really great LinkedIn learning class for students. Ross and I have both watched this and thought that it was really, really helpful and informative. It goes into really nitty gritties about freelancing. It talks about some of the taxes and rates and things that we talked about today and contracts. So if you're curious to know more about that kind of stuff, students have access to LinkedIn Learning for free. So definitely check out that course. It was called Freelancing Foundations, and Ross put that info in the chat. We also have a freelance guide that our office put together. So we'll send that out to the students who were here tonight as well. Awesome. Cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up and not keep everyone any longer. But thank you all again so much. I'll stop recording here in a second. Yeah. And everyone have a great night. Thank you again.